Hi students, Sherrill here. Wanted to take a couple of minutes to go over how you should best prepare for one of my module exams in any of my psychology classes, whether it be general psychology, abnormal psychology, or so on. First and foremost, what should you study? Well, if you utilize the PowerPoint presentation and the outline that I provide you, those are going to be your key, I guess, checklists for what you need to know. You should also utilize the notes that you take, whether it's in a face-to-face class or if it's from watching those recorded lecture videos that I provide. You should always take notes in there. There may be times that I provide a really good example that really helps you to understand a concept, but it's not necessarily on the PowerPoint slide. So I would take the time to write things like that down. There may be also times while I'm lecturing that I say, you really need to know this. Wink, wink, that's something you want to make sure that you highlight and be certain to know for the exams. So that's what you need to do as far as what to focus on. Probably the next thing that I would recommend is understanding how the exam experience is different from other things. First of all, the exams are timed. For the majority of my tests, I think it's around 55 minutes. That may vary from one course to another. Um, and you only get one attempt at these, which may be kind of different for some students who were recently in high school and they could redo tests. If they didn't do well, they had a bad day, they were off. There are no makeups or redos on these exams. So you really need to make sure that you're well prepared as far as covering and understanding the material. You want to, to the best of your ability, to reduce whatever junk may be going on in your life, and that's hard to do sometimes. Frequently say life doesn't stop just because you're a college student, but success in college is more to do with how we handle things than how smart we are. If you're really good at managing your time and making sure that you're, doing everything you need to do, you don't necessarily have to get perfect grades, but you'll stay on top of things better. So I'm always open to giving advice on how to be a better juggler of all these different responsibilities in school and out altogether. But it is timed. You get one attempt, and the expectation is that you're not going to be using your notes or the PowerPoint or any other resources while you're taking the test. These things should be committed to your memory. You should have a good understanding of how the concepts can be applied in the real world. I do not use Respondus on the exams, which some of you may be very happy because to me it's kind of a pain. So it being a timed test is how I reduce the possibility or potential of students cheating. You're not to work on the exams with anybody else. We do focus on, and anytime we get red flags, we can look and see how long did it take you to complete the entire test? How much time did you spend on an individual question? What students worked on the test at the same time? So there are things there. So please do not be tempted to cheat or do things that are unethical. You can have what's called an academic integrity violation put against you for cheating. And that can stay with you the rest of your life because it can go on your official transcript. So please don't do something like that. The best thing I would say is to be over prepared. When I gave this test as paper and pencil sitting in the classroom, students who really prepared and knew the information would be done in 20, 25 minutes, far less than the 55 minutes that is on this exam. If you don't prepare, if you don't know the information well, it's going to take you a lot longer. Let's say you decide, well, I'm going to look up an answer on my PowerPoint. They'll never know. Okay, well, if you don't prepare at all, you're going to run out of time. I've had a student who literally ran out of time on like the 17th question and then was begging me to redo the test, and they were denied. And the reason why it took them so long is they were trying to look up all the answers. They were not prepared at all. So here's the thing. If you do well, fabulous. I'm sure that'll make you feel good to do well on an exam. However, for whatever reason you don't do well on an exam, I don't want it to frustrate you. What I want it to do is motivate you to figure out how could you do better? What could you do better to prepare? And I am open to anybody after you complete the exam. If you want to set up a one-on-one meeting with me, either in person or online, and we can take a real honest look on, from your point, what did you do and what did you not do, and what could you add for future exams? Okay, so I'm going to show you really quickly a list that I've made that, hold on one second, that has some suggestions on different ways to study. Now, hold on. Let me stop that and show this. All right, I think I got it now. All right, so one size doesn't fit all when it comes to study methods and preparation methods. And what you find works in one class may not necessarily work in another class. Use the PowerPoint and the outline as a checklist. What do you know? What do you don't know? Do this before it's nearing the deadline for the exam, because then if you find there's a couple of terms here and there that you're really confused by, you can look them up on the online textbook. You can reach out to me and I can try to clarify it before it's time for the test. Also, and I have 3 asterisks next to this because I think it's such a great way for students to really master the material. If you have a family member or a friend, or maybe your dog, or I've even had a student said they did it with a stuffed animal, take the time to actually verbalize and explain and talk about what you're learning in class. You know, you're listening to it. You may be writing down notes, but when you have to put it into words that somebody else understands it, that gets further cemented in your memory. And you can kind of see along the way of explaining it where there might be some pitfalls that you don't quite get. So this is really, really helpful way of preparing. Um, Another one that I have asterisks, and some material, this will be easier than others. Try to come up with examples from your own life experiences. So for instance, you know, our chapter on research in general psychology, or the history of general psychology, it's kind of hard to come up with personal experiences of that. But when we cover a chapter on motivation or sensation, or even neurology, you may have personal experiences or know of things, and you can use the information that you're learning, the, you know, the terms and the concepts, and apply it to those real experiences. And as you'll learn in general psych in our chapter on memory, when you attach new information to things that are already in your memory, it's much more solid, and you'll be able to utilize it when needed in the future. Some of you use flashcards, and flashcards can be great, especially if you have chapters or materials that have a lot of terminology. But the number one thing that people do wrong with flashcards is they forget to shuffle them. And our brain sometimes likes to work against us, and it'll focus more on the order of the cards than the actual substance of the cards, the material you're trying to remember. Have you ever been using flashcards and you know what the next card is before you turn it? Your brain's focusing on that than really the material. So try to make sure you're shuffling those. Um, I have a little bit further down an example of factual or definition questions versus applied questions. And you've already seen those in the mastery quizzes. If you look back at the wording, you'll see where the definition, the wording isn't in the question. It's an applied example. You've got to be able to recognize it. And I will tell you, it's a lot harder to figure out those answers when you haven't studied and haven't prepared, and you thought you could just, use your notes or PowerPoint to be able to answer a question. It's not very easy to do that with an applied question. So again, over prepare. Um, I was a very sociable college student, so I had a group of 10 to 15 really good friends, and we would take classes together. And even if I had to take a class where I didn't know anybody at the beginning, I would purposefully try to meet and talk with students and form study groups. And when I was in school, we'd go to like Waffle House until 2 in the morning, and about 60% of the time we were cutting up and socializing and all that, which is necessary. It's a stress reducer. You're developing that support network that you need. That's so important in college and in life in general. And then 40% of the time, we've got some really quality, uh, useful studying in. If one of my friends didn't understand something, I could explain it to them. If I came to something that was confusing to me, they could explain it to me. So, and again, verbalizing it gets it further in your memory. So that's something that may work, but I know not all students are, sociable. They don't want to get in groups. They don't have the time in their life because of other commitments. So that may not be for everybody. Um, Next on this outline is, since the vast majority of my questions are multiple choice, when you're going over the material, when you're studying, as I'm covering it in the lectures, think to yourself, how would this be put into the form of a multiple choice question? And the key here is you have to put just as much thought into the answer options as you do the questions themselves, because it's frequently the answer options that kind of throw us. I don't believe in trick questions. So most of the time, if you think you've come to a trick question, it may be that there's some confusion there. Okay. I don't ever purposefully try to, oh, let's see if they can figure this out. That's not me. Okay. So when you're studying, okay, if this was a definition question, blank is defined as which of the following. Okay, very straightforward multiple choice. An applied question, when considering this topic, which of the following is a real world example of that? And again, if you look back at your mastery quizzes, you'll see times where I used factual definition questions and times that I used real world application questions. Try writing examples or thinking about it. If you get into a study group, maybe one person writes a bunch of multiple choice questions for this chapter, another person writes them for this chapter, and then switch and actually test one another and see if your mind is in that place where you can think how you're going to be tested. And that makes taking the test so much easier. The Learning Center at Gaston College does have tutoring. So you can contact them. I believe their phone number is listed on here is still accurate. They are now in the library on the Dallas campus. So you can contact them and see if they have somebody that can offer tutoring. Let's see, make sure you're eating right and sleeping well, because I put the example that if you don't have gas in your car, it's really not going to drive anywhere. So you have to take care of yourself. And that also includes taking care of your mental health as well. Remember that Gaston College does offer free counseling services for students and their families if there are things going on that are really keeping you from doing your best. Um, if at any time, reach out to me, let me know what I can do. I can potentially tell you about the resources that are available, but be prepared for the exam. Let me know how I can be of assistance. And hopefully you enjoy learning about the different topics that we're covering in psychology. So that's all I have for now. If you have any suggestions that you would like to see me add to this in the future, please message me on Blackboard, let me know in class, and I'll be sure to add those for future recommendation videos. Thank you.